What happens when loyalty to family meets the weight of public responsibility? Tonight's story is about a moment that started polite, almost gentle. Ivanka sat across the desk, calm and confident, ready to defend her father's legacy. She spoke about respect, about empowerment, about the man she knows at home. But then, Rachel Maddow did what she's known for. She stayed calm. She opened the folder, and she asked the question no one in that room could ignore. If you've followed Matt for years, you already know. Shay doesn't shout. Shay doesn't rush. Shay listens carefully. And when the moment comes, she leans in and asks the one question that changes everything. This wasn't loud television. It was sharper than that. It was steady. And as the quotes were read out loud, word for word, the tone in the room shifted. Smiles faded. Voices tightened. The space between daughter and defender suddenly felt very small for many viewers who have watched politics for decades. This moment felt familiar. The tension between image and record, between family loyalty and public duty, between what is said at home and what is said on record. And then came the line that stopped the room. Cold Maddow didn't back down. Not when the answers got defensive. Not when the tone turned sharp. Not even when the warning came. Because at the heart of it, it was a simple idea many of you understand deeply. Leadership means answering hard questions, especially when they are uncomfortable. So tonight, we're walking through that exchange, step by step. What was said, what wasn't said, and why one empty chair at the end spoke louder than anything else. Stay with me, because this wasn't just an interview. It was a test of accountability. The lights in the studio glow warm and steady. The audience cannot be seen, but you can feel the silence. It is the kind of silence that waits for something important to happen. The camera slowly moves toward the desk. On one side sits calm posture, papers stacked neatly in front of her, a pen resting between her fingers. Her face shows a polite smile, but her eyes look focused. Ready? On the other side sits Ivanka, perfect posture, soft smile, hair in place. She looks prepared, confident, even relaxed. Tonight was supposed to be a thoughtful conversation, a chance to show grace under pressure, a chance to show that the presidency has a gentle side. The music fades out completely. And just like that, the interview begins. Maddow starts with warmth. Ivanka, she says, many people see you as the face of a softer presidency, a business leader, a daughter, a voice for women. The words float gently across the desk. Ivanka nods and smiles. Thank you, she replies smoothly. It's an honor to serve. Her voice is steady, calm, practiced. She talks about her childhood, about growing up around strong women, about watching her father build businesses and hire talented women into powerful positions. She says he always encouraged her to think big, to lead, to speak up. My father respects women, she says clearly. He always has. The camera cuts to Maddow, listening carefully. No interruption, just a slight nod. Ivanka continues. He empowered me. He empowered so many women in his companies. What people see in headlines is not the man I know at home. The words at home hang gently in the air. The tone feels personal now, emotional, human for a moment. It almost feels like a family conversation instead of a political one. Maddow folds her hands lightly on the desk. That's important to hear, she responds. The conversation moves slowly, carefully. They talk about leadership, about responsibility, about balancing family and public service. Ivanka speaks about wanting young girls to believe they can lead. She says representation matters. She says women should never doubt their worth. It sounds inspiring, and the audience watching at home might feel comforted. Maybe this will stay polite. Maybe it will stay smooth. But then something changes. Maddow leans forward just slightly. It's not dramatic. It's subtle, but it signals a shift. You've said, Maddow begins gently, that your father empowers women. Tonight, I'd like to talk about how that matches with some of his public comments over the years. There it is, the first crack in the polished surface. Ivanka's smile holds steady, but it becomes tighter, smaller. Of course, she replies. I'm happy to clarify anything. Her voice remains calm. Controlled. Maddow continues carefully. There are people who struggle to connect the image you describe with certain remarks he's made in the past. Ivanka inhales slowly. Well, she says, context matters. And just like that, the tone shifts from warm to careful. The studio feels different now. Not louder, not angrier, just heavier. Mad's questions are not loud or aggressive. They are steady, direct, almost quiet, and that quiet makes them stronger. You describe him as respectful. Maddow says, some women describe feeling uncomfortable with his words. How do you reconcile that? It's a simple question, but it carries weight. Ivanka pauses for half a second, barely noticeable. Then she answers, my father has always treated me with respect. She says, he has always valued women in his life, and in his work, Critics often take statements out of context. Her tone remains measured, but something in the room feels tighter now. The easy smiles from the beginning have faded. The camera cuts 2 hands resting near a folder on the desk. A thick folder. Ivanka keeps speaking. She talks about media distortion, about political attacks, about how easy it is to twist words. People don't see the full picture. She says they don't see who he is privately. Maddow listens. She doesn't interrupt. She doesn't argue. Instead, she lets the words settle. And that silence begins to feel powerful because the audience can sense something coming. The friendly tone of the opening is still there on the surface, but underneath, tension is building. Maddow glances down briefly at the folder. Ivanka notices her shoulders straighten. The room feels like it's holding its breath. This was supposed to be a soft interview, a chance to polish an image to present calm confidence beside power. But the air now feels charged, and everyone watching can feel it. The real conversation hasn't even started yet. The folder is still closed. The papers are still untouched. But something tells you that once they open, nothing about this interview will remain soft. The smiles were only at the beginning. The storm is about to begin. Asterisk. The tension is quiet, but it's real now. Maddow looks up from her notes and speaks carefully. You've described your father as someone who respects women deeply, she says. But many people remember comments that sounded very different. How do you explain that gap? The question is calm, almost gentle, but it lands with weight. Ivanka keeps her posture straight. Her hands rest neatly in her lap. Her smile returns softer this time, but more controlled. I think it's important, she begins, to understand who my father really is, not just the headlines people repeat. Her tone is steady, confident. He hired women into top positions long before it was common. He trusted women to lead. He trusted me to lead. She speaks clearly as if she has rehearsed this moment many times. I would never stand beside a man who disrespects women, especially not my own father. There is emotion in her voice now. Not anger, not yet, but something personal. Maddow nods slowly. You're not just his daughter, Maddow replies. You're also an advisor. That puts you in a unique position. Ivanka agrees. Yes. And in that position, I've seen how seriously he takes the voices of women around him. She pauses, then adds, people forget that. The studio feels still again. Maddow folds her hands on the desk. Some would argue that public words matter just as much as private behavior. She says. Ivanka responds quickly. Of course they do. But context matters, too. Humor matters. Timing matters. She leans forward slightly now. Comments made years ago, sometimes decades ago, are being judged without context. That's not fair. Her voice grows firmer. He's been in public life for a long time. If you record anyone for decades, you'll find moments that don't reflect who they truly are. It's a strong defense, and for a moment, it feels convincing. Maddow lets a short silence sit between them, the kind of silence that invites deeper answers. Then she asks, do you believe any of those comments crossed a line? The question hangs in the air. Ivanka blinks once. A small pause. I believe, she says slowly, choosing each word carefully, that my father speaks in a way that can be blunt. Sometimes that bluntness is misunderstood. She avoids saying yes. She avoids saying no. Instead, she shifts the focus. What matters is how he treats the women in his life. And I can say with confidence, he has always treated me with respect. The emphasis on me is clear. Maddow notices it. But what about women who aren't family? She asks, softly. There it is. Again. Simple but sharp. Ivanka's jaw tightens just slightly. He respects women across the board. She says that's been my experience, and I wouldn't be in this role if I believed otherwise. Her tone is loyal, protective. She is no longer just speaking as an advisor. She is speaking as a daughter, and that makes this more complicated. The audience watching can sense the emotional line she refuses to cross. Criticizing her father publicly is hard, even harder when that father holds the highest office in the country. Maddow understands this. She shifts her approach. Do you ever challenge him? She asks. Ivanka answers without hesitation. Of course. We have healthy discussions. Can you share an example? Maddow asks gently. There is another pause. Ivanka's eyes flicker for just a second. Well, she says carefully, private conversations should remain private. It's a safe answer, but it leaves the question hanging. Maddow does not push yet. Instead, she nods. I understand privacy, she says. But when you speak publicly about empowering women, people want to know whether that empowerment includes holding powerful men accountable. The word accountable feels heavier than the rest. Ivanka shifts in her seat. My father doesn't need me to lecture him, she says. He listens. He reflects. He grows. The statement sounds hopeful, but Maddow's expression stays neutral. Growth often requires acknowledgement. She replies quietly, and now the tension is unmistakable. The polite smiles from the beginning are gone. The conversation has moved from image to responsibility. Ivanka's voice grows firmer. There's a difference between genuine concern and political attacks. She says, I won't accept unfair portrayals of my father. The temperature in the room rises, not through shouting, but through tone. This is no longer just about words spoken years ago. It's about loyalty. It's about power. It's about whether family love can exist beside public accountability. Maddow glances down at the thick folder on her desk. Her hand rests on it now. Ivanka notices, and for the first time, uncertainty flashes across her face, because up until this moment the debate has been about interpretation. Soon, it may become about specifics. Ivanka finishes her point firmly. I know the man he is, she says, and I stand by him. The statement is clear, final, but Maddow's fingers tighten slightly on the edge of the folder, and you can feel it. The real test hasn't started yet. The defense has been made. Now comes the evidence. The studio is quiet again. Not the calm silence from the beginning. This silence feels heavier. Ivanka has just said, I stand by him. The words are still hanging in the air. Maddow nods once slowly. Then, without rushing, she opens the folder. The sound of paper sliding across the desk is louder than expected. It's a small sound, but in this moment, it feels sharp. Ivanka's eyes drop briefly to the stack of printed pages. Thick, organized, marked with notes. Maddow places one sheet on top. I'd like to read a few of his own words, she says gently. There is no anger in her voice. No dramatic tone, just calm. And that calm makes it stronger. She begins reading a past comment about rating women's appearances. Another about preferring younger women. The words are not shouted. They are simply read as they were once spoken. Ivanka keeps her expression steady, but her smile is gone now. Maddow continues. A public remark about how if she weren't his daughter, he might date her. The room freezes. Even through the screen, you can feel it. Maddow doesn't look up right away. She finishes the sentence exactly as written. Then she looks at Ivanka. No sarcasm, no smirk, just a question in her eyes. Ivanka inhales slowly. That was a joke, she says quickly. People know my father jokes. Maddow nods slightly. Another comment, she says, picking up a second sheet. She reads a line about asking whether his teenage daughter was hot. The word lands hard. It echoes. Ivanka shifts in her chair. That's being taken out of context, she says. He has a playful personality. That's how he speaks. Her voice is steady, but tighter now. Maddow places the papers flat on the desk so both of them can see them. These aren't summaries, Maddow says softly. These are direct quotes. Ivanka's jaw tightens. And again, she replies, tone matters. Timing matters. It's easy to judge words. Later, Maddow doesn't interrupt. Instead, she asks something simple. When powerful men speak this way publicly, what message does it send to young women watching? The question floats in the space between them. Ivanka blinks. Her answer comes slower this time. I think young women are smart, she says. They understand humor. They understand personality. Maddow tilts her head slightly. Do they understand when they're being talked about as objects? She asks. Gently. Nat one hits. Ivanka's composure flickers for just a second. It was not objectifying me, she says firmly. He was being lighthearted. Maddow folds her hands again. Some would say that even lighthearted comments can shape culture. The word culture sits heavy. Ivanka leans forward now with respect. She says, her voice sharpening. This feels like an attempt to turn family banter into something darker. The air in the studio feels tight. Maddow doesn't back down. I'm not interpreting, she says calmly. I'm reading. She taps the paper lightly. These words were spoken publicly. Ivanka looks directly at her now. And I'm telling you that the man behind those words is not what you're suggesting. There it is again, loyalty. But now, there's something else, too. Defensiveness. Maddow studies. Heard for a brief second. Let me ask you this, she says quietly. If any other man, not your father, made those same comments about his daughter, how would you react? The question lands like a weight dropping. Ivanka opens her mouth, stops, closes it again. The pause stretches. The camera stays locked on her face. Finally, she answers. I don't deal in hypotheticals. It's controlled, careful, but it's not an answer. Maddow notices. I understand that this is personal, she says, her tone softening slightly. But when someone holds the highest office in the country, their words are no longer just personal. Ivanka's shoulders rise and fall with a slow breath. My father loves his family, she says. He loves his daughters. There is nothing inappropriate. In that, no one is questioning love, Maddow replies, or questioning language. Another silence. The stack of papers sits between them like a wall. This is no longer about interpretation. It's It's about whether words spoken in public carry a responsibility. Ivanka's voice grows firmer again. These are old comments, she says. Why focus on this? Now Maddow answers without hesitation, because leadership is not just about policy. It's about example. That sentence hangs in the air longer than the others. Ivanka looks down briefly at the papers. Then back at Maddow, her calm mask is cracking. Not dramatically, just enough to see the strain underneath. The friendly interview from the beginning is gone. This is no longer about image. It's about reality. And as Maddow gently slides the next page forward, you can feel it. The hardest questions are still coming. The tension is no longer quiet. It's visible now. Ivanka's hands are no longer resting calmly in her lap. They are clasped tightly together. Her shoulders are stiff. Her voice, once smooth and measured, now carries an edge. Maddow sits still. The papers remain on the desk between them. No one is smiling anymore. I think this line of questioning is unfair, Ivanka says firmly. You're turning light comments into something dark. That says more about the interpretation than the words themselves. Her tone is sharper now. The shift is clear. Maddow doesn't react. Emotionally, she doesn't interrupt. Instead, she speaks slowly. When words are spoken by someone with immense power, she says, they don't stay light. They carry weight. Ivanka exhales through her nose, clearly frustrated. With respect, she replies, this feels like an attack on my family. There it is. The conversation has crossed into personal territory. Maddow leans forward slightly. You are here tonight, she says calmly. Not just as a daughter. You are here as a senior advisor to the president. The distinction lands hard. Ivanka's eyes narrow. I am both, she replies. You can't separate that. That's exactly the challenge, Maddow answers quietly. When family members step into official roles, they carry both loyalty and responsibility, and sometimes those clash. The air feels heavy again. Ivanka shakes her head slightly. My father has been judged unfairly for years, she says. Every joke, every offhand comment, it's exhausting. Her voice cracks just slightly on the last word. For the first time, emotion breaks through. Maddow notices. I understand loyalty, she says gently, but accountability is not an attack. It's part of leadership. Ivanka's composure tightens again. So what exactly are you asking me to do? She demands. Publicly condemn my father. Is that what this is? Maddow does not raise her voice. I am asking whether you believe those comments were appropriate, direct, clear, unavoidable. Ivanka causes her lips pressed together. She looks down at the papers again, then back up. I believe, she says carefully, that my father speaks. In his own style, he doesn't filter himself the way politicians often do. That wasn't the question, Maddow replies softly. The words are calm, but they cut. The silence that follows feels almost unbearable. Finally, Ivanka snaps. These questions are disgusting, she says. You're twisting family remarks into something ugly. Her voice is louder now. The calm control from earlier has slipped. Maddow remains steady. No, she says quietly. I'm reading them exactly as they were spoken. Ivanka leans forward, her frustration clear. You don't understand our relationship, she says. You don't understand our family. Maddow nods slightly. You're right, I don't, but the public doesn't either. They only have the words that was said. The room feels like it has shrunk. The camera catches every shift in expression. Patience is thinning. You keep talking about accountability, she says. What about fairness? What about context? Fairness, Maddow replies, includes asking hard questions. Then she says a line that changes everything. Don't hide behind the role of the little princess when you're here as the president's top defender. Power comes with accountability, not just a softer voice and a polished image. The words hit like a strike of lightning. Ivanka's eyes widen for a split second. She looks stunned. Then, anger replaces it. That is completely inappropriate, she says sharply. The calm, polished presence from the beginning of the interview is gone. Now it's raw. Maddow does not apologize. When someone is presented as the moderating influence, she continues evenly, the public has the right to know whether that influence is real or just cosmetic. Ivanka stands her ground. I advise my father in private, she says. We have real conversations. Can you name one instance where you publicly disagreed with him on this issue? Maddow asks. There's that silence again? Longer this time. Ivanka's eyes flicker. The answer doesn't come. Instead, she shifts. Ivanka says coldly. The president will remember this interview. It's not loud, but it sounds like a warning. The room goes still. Maddow meets her gaze without hesitation. You came here to defend his record with your reputation, she says calmly. I came here to defend the public's right to ask questions. Only one of us signed up for this. The words settle like dust after a storm. Ivanka stares at her for a moment. Then, without another word, she reaches for her microphone. The small click as she removes it echoes in the quiet studio. She stands. The chair slides back slightly and she walks off. No dramatic exit, no shouting, just a silent departure. The camera stays on Maddow. The empty chair across from her says more than words ever. Could the storm has passed, but the aftermath is just beginning. The studio is silent. The sound of Ivanka's footsteps fades away. The chair across from Maddow sits empty, slightly turned from where she pushed it back. The microphone wire still hangs loosely over the armrest. The papers remain spread across the desk for a few seconds. No one speaks. The camera stays on Maddow. She does not look shocked. She does not look triumphant. She simply looks thoughtful. Then she slowly turns toward the camera. Her voice is calm, again, measured, almost quiet. Well, she begins. That wasn't how this was meant to end. She glances briefly at the empty chair. When family members step into official roles, she continues, they step into public responsibility. There is no anger in her tone, just clarity. This was never about attacking a family, she says. It was about asking whether words spoken by powerful people matter. She picks up one of the printed pages, holds it lightly. Leadership is not only about decisions made behind closed doors, she explains, it's also about the examples set in public. The camera moves in slightly closer. When a leader jokes about a woman's body, she says, or makes comments that feel uncomfortable. It shapes how others think. It's acceptable to speak. She sets the paper back down, and when that leader is also a father, and the woman being spoken about is his daughter, it sends a message, whether intended or not. She pauses. The silence feels different now, not tense, reflective. Many daughters look up to their fathers, she says softly. Many fathers try to protect their daughters. The words we use matter, because they teach others what respect looks like. She folds her hands. I asked whether those comments were appropriate. I did not get an answer. She lets that sink in. That silence may say more than any defense. The empty chair remains in frame. Feels symbolic now, not just a seat, but a space where accountability could have happened. Maddow continues, it is never easy to question someone you love. Loyalty is powerful. Family bonds are strong. She nods slightly. But when someone chooses to serve in government, especially at the highest level, the standard changes. Her tone becomes firmer. You are no longer speaking only as a daughter. You are speaking as a representative of power. She leans forward slightly, and power must answer questions. There is no dramatic music, no raised voice, just steady truth. Walking away from difficult conversations doesn't erase them, she says. It simply leaves them unfinished. She glances one last time at the stack of papers. These words were spoken publicly. The questions were asked publicly. The public deserves clarity. The camera slowly pulls back, widening the frame so both Maddow and the empty chair are visible. This interview was not about winning. She says it was about responsibility. She pauses again. Respect is not a slogan. It is shown in actions. It is shown in language. It is shown in how we speak about others, especially those closest to us. Her voice softens. If we excuse certain words because they come from someone powerful, we quietly teach others to do the same. The studio feels calm now, not tense, but thoughtful. So the question remains, she says, what does real respect look like? She does not answer it for the viewer. Instead, she lets it hang there. Is it loyalty without limits? She asks. Is it defending every statement, no matter how uncomfortable? Or is it being strong enough to say that crossed a line, even when it's hard? The camera slowly fades toward a wider shot. The empty chair remains in view. One side filled, one side vacant. This conversation doesn't end here, Maddow says quietly. It continues wherever people care about accountability. She offers a small nod. Thank you for watching. The lights dim slightly, the desk remains, the papers remain, and the empty chair remains. A reminder that sometimes the most powerful moment in a room is not what is said, but who chooses not to stay and say it.